Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's video, we're going to see why changing transmission fluid is sometimes considered risky when it's beneficial and how to do it safely. Understanding the role of transmission fluid. Transmission fluid is essential for lubrication, which reduces wear on moving parts. It also helps with cooling, preventing overheating of internal components. The hydraulic function enables gear shifting and automatic transmissions. Additionally, it contains detergents to prevent the buildup of sludge and varnish. Over time, the fluid degrades due to heat, friction, and contamination from tiny metal shavings. That's why periodic changes are recommended. Why some believe changing transmission fluid can be harmful. While regular maintenance is good, there are certain risks when changing transmission fluid in older or poorly maintained vehicles. Here's why. Dislodging sludge and deposits. If the fluid has never been changed and is full of sludge, suddenly replacing it can loosen debris. This sludge can clog small passages in the valve body, causing erratic shifting or failure, changing viscosity and friction properties. Over time, old fluid loses its original viscosity and friction properties. If the transmission is already worn, it may have adapted to degraded fluid. Adding fresh fluid with proper viscosity can reduce the friction needed for worn clutches to engage properly, causing slippage. Worn transmission components get exposed. Dirty, thicker fluid can act like a band-aid for worn clutches and seals. New fluid, with its cleaning agents, may expose worn parts that were previously sealed by sludge. This is why transmissions sometimes fail shortly after a fluid change, not because of the new fluid, but because of pre-existing damage that becomes apparent. Flush versus drain and refill risks. A transmission flush uses a high-pressure machine to push out all old fluid. This can dislodge debris too quickly and cause blockages. A drain and refill only removes part of the fluid, around 30 to 60%, and is a safer approach for older transmissions. When changing transmission fluid is safe, if it's done at regular intervals. If you've been changing the fluid every 30,000 to 60,000 miles, it's completely safe. Manufacturers often provide specific service intervals. Ignoring them leads to problems. If the transmission is in good condition, if the transmission shifts smoothly and has no issues, changing the fluid will extend its life. Vehicles that have been regularly serviced won't suffer from the issues mentioned earlier. If the fluid is still in decent condition, checking the transmission fluid before changing it is crucial. If the fluid is burnt, dark, or has metal shavings, changing it could make things worse. When changing transmission fluid might be risky, there are a few scenarios to be aware of. First, if the vehicle has extremely high mileage without a fluid change, well, if a car has never had a transmission fluid change and has over 100,000 miles, a sudden change could cause failure. In this case, a gradual approach like multiple partial fluid changes over time is better. Next, if the transmission is already slipping or hesitating, if you're experiencing transmission slipping, delayed shifts, or jerking, changing the fluid is unlikely to help. This is usually a sign of internal wear or damage, not just bad fluid. And lastly, if the fluid is extremely dark and burnt, black, burnt-smelling fluid is a sign of transmission damage. Changing the fluid at this point might remove friction material that was keeping the transmission functional. In such cases, a transmission rebuild or replacement may be needed. The best way to change transmission fluid safely. If you're worried about causing issues, follow these steps. First, check the fluid. Look at the color and smell. Bright red or pink means it's in good condition. Light brown indicates it's getting old but still safe to change. If it's dark brown or black with a burnt smell, it's risky to change. The transmission may be worn. Use a dipstick or drain plug sample to check for metal shavings. Next, opt for a drain and refill instead of a flush. A drain and refill removes only a portion of the old fluid and replaces it gradually. Doing this every few thousand miles allows the transmission to adapt slowly to the new fluid. A full flush can shock the system, especially if it's never been serviced before. Always use the correct fluid type. Manufacturer-recommended transmission fluid is crucial. The wrong fluid type can affect friction and shift quality. And finally, consider adding a transmission conditioner for high-mileage cars. Some high-mileage transmission additives help soften hardened seals and improve shifting. This may help if the transmission is slightly worn but still functional. Final verdict. Should you change your transmission fluid? Change it if the car has been regularly serviced, the fluid is in decent condition, not burnt or too dark. The transmission shifts smoothly with no issues, and you're doing a drain and refill, not a full flush. Be cautious if the car has never had a transmission fluid change and has high mileage, like over 100,000 miles. Also, be cautious if the transmission is already slipping or hesitating, or if the fluid is extremely dark, burnt, or contains metal shavings. Don't change it if the transmission is failing with slipping, harsh shifts, or delays. Also, don't change it if the fluid is completely burnt, indicating severe internal damage, or if you're considering a full flush on an old neglected transmission. Final thoughts. Regular maintenance is the best way to keep a transmission healthy. Changing transmission fluid is only bad in cases where the transmission is already failing or has gone too long without service. If unsure, a gradual approach with partial changes over time is safer than a full flush. Checking your car's transmission fluid properly is crucial for maintaining smooth gear shifts and preventing transmission issues. Here's a step-by-step guide. Step 1. Park the car safely. Park your car on a level surface, engage the parking brake, start the engine and let it warm up for a few minutes unless the owner's manual says to check it cold. Step 2. Locate the transmission dipstick. Open the hood and look for the transmission dipstick. Automatic cars usually have a dipstick labeled transmission or ATF. Manual cars mostly don't have a dipstick. Fluid is checked through a fill plug. Step 3. Check the fluid level. Pull out the dipstick and wipe it clean with a lint-free cloth. Reinsert it fully, then pull it out again. Check the fluid level against the full and low marks on the dipstick. Step 4. Inspect the fluid condition. Good fluid is bright red or pink with a smooth consistency. Fluid that needs attention is dark brown, has a burnt smell, or a gritty texture, which may indicate contamination or the need for a change. Step 5. Add transmission fluid if needed. Use the correct type of transmission fluid as per your owner's manual. Add small amounts at a time using a funnel. Do not overfill. Too much fluid can cause transmission damage. Step 6. Replace the dipstick and close the hood. Ensure the dipstick is securely back in place and close the hood properly. Extra tips. Some newer cars don't have a dipstick. Fluid must be checked by a professional. If you notice leaks under your car, have the transmission inspected.